So now that we have created the instance, clicking on that particular instance, you will get some details below. So in the details section, you will get a summary of the instance. For example, the instance ID, whether the instance is running or not, the type of instance that we choose when we created the instance, the public IP address. So this is the IP address, is a public IP that we use to communicate with this instance. And a corresponding DNS name is also being associated with our instance. So you can either use the public IP address or the DNS, whichever you prefer. Also, it has been given a private IP address. So if you have many instances and you want to communicate, or they want to communicate, the instances or application deployed in this instance needs to communicate with another application installed in another instance, they can use the private IP address to communicate between them. And of course, we can see some details like the virtual private cloud. And from this, and if you want to go to individual tabs, you will get the details of each of the individual. This details only gives you a summary. So for example, if you want to see the security group that we created, and if, of course, you can see there is an ID associated with it. So one thing you need to understand, whichever resource or service we are going to use in Amazon, everything has an instance ID associated with it, or instance ID or whatever, some ID is going to be associated with it. And you can see here the name of the group that we gave. So I gave this IJ038SG as the security group's name, and some details of the security group. We made sure that the 2022 port is open for us to SSH to that particular instance that we will see in a moment. And then all the other stuff like the networking, what was the VPC? Again, VPC also has some ID and the subnet and all the stuff. We will come to a VPC later. And then the storage that we used to we assigned or created when we created this particular instance. All these details are available here. And then some status checking. We are not put any status checking as of now, and not even any monitoring right now. But then you can see there are some tags that we have specified when we created the instance. Going back to the networking or the details, I want this public IP address to be used. So how are we going to communicate with this instance from our system, from our local system to this instance available in the cloud? For this, we use a tool called Putty. I have already opened it up in order to speed up the video. You can download the Putty from here. Just type in Google Putty and it will show us the link. You can download it there and install it. Not big deal, just a setup file. Just go with the defaults, that's all. So the next thing that we are going to do, we are going to use Putty. I am talking about those guys who are not using Windows 10. I mean, if you're having Windows 7 or 8, or if you don't want to use the Windows 10 capability and want to communicate with the instance, this lecture is for them. So that is the reason, because there is no SSH client as is below the version of Windows 10, but it is available in Windows 10. Okay, so this lecture is for those who doesn't have a Windows 10. So how do we do that? We are going to use this Putty. And how are we going to do this? Remember, we had downloaded the key value pair when we used this particular or created this particular instance. So I'm going to open up the Putty tool. So instead of directly opening up this Putty app, I'm going to use a Putty Gen, which is a tool that came along when I installed this Putty application. So I will click on this Putty Gen because Putty doesn't board well with the PEM file that Amazon gave us. So we need to convert that PEM file into a Putty friendly file. So what we are going to do, I am going to load the private key that we received from Putty because it is looking for PPK. I will change to all files, and you will see in the downloads section, I will have, what was the name? I think I gave, yeah, ij0038.pem file. That was the file that I downloaded in the key value pair section. I will open it up. It will tell with a dialog box we have said that the Putty has successfully imported this foreign key. I will just give an OK there. So it does whatever it needs to do, and then I will again click on the save private key here. Okay, and then I'm going to click on this private key. It again pops up a dialog whether you want to save this key without a passphrase. You can see, suppose somebody wants to use this private key and your system is not a PC, I mean personally on the computer, then you may want to give a passphrase to secure your key that you are going to save. For the time being, this is my personal computer. I am 100% sure nobody is going to use it or hack it. So I will just go ahead and save it. And I'm going to save it in, I already have an Amazon where I have some the PP private keys. So I will give the name. What was the name of that file anyway? Um, I will give it the same name. What was the name? I forgot the name. So let me check it out. What was the name? IJ0038, I think. So I will give IJ0038 just to distinguish. And it will be, don't need to give the extension. It will be saved using the .ppk file. So save it. Once that is being done, you can close the Putty gen. Then again, you need to take the Putty, but in this case, we are going to use the Putty application, not the Putty gen, the application. So I will click on it and it will open up a dialog box like this. So the first thing is the host name that we need to give, and that should be I can give either the DNS or you can give the public IP address. So I will click on it, copy it, and then I will paste it here. And then you need to know SSH use the default port 22 of this particular host. And of course, if you look at the security aspect, always you need to check whether this particular 22 port is open, or else it won't allow us to connect. And then we need to, just the IP address won't do. We need to do EC2 hyphen user and give @ and then we are ready to connect with it. So before I connect, I will save this as, okay, I will give a name. So maybe CTS EC2 maybe be a good thing. So I just want to save this configuration so that I can use it later. So I'm going to save it. Okay, and then then I will open up to a connect. So I'm going to use EC2 user, which is the internal user that Amazon uses for this particular Amazon image that we created. So I will use the EC2 user @ and the public IP address of that particular. So here networking, the public IP address that is available 18.22, I is copied it there. Then I will give an open, and then it will open up in a new window for the Putty. Let me wait, and you can see some alert. Putty, the server host key is not cached. Do you want to go ahead? I will give an yes, and then of course an error appears. No supported authentication method available. So what we need to do? We need to close it. Again, taken up the Putty, not the Putty gen, the Putty. And what we forgot here is that, of course, I will load this thing back. So I will give a load, will appear. So one thing that forgot is that we forgot to specify the primary key file that was generated in the previous step. So I will open up the connection, open up SSH, and in the auth, here you can see the input text field where I will use a browse, go to the Amazon and select the PPK key. Now it is available, and again I will go back to the session and save it once more, and then I will try to open it up. So this time, now I am inside this particular instance that I created. Simple, isn't it? So the first command, who am I, that we use. So it will give you the EC2 user. Not only that, here the security group only gives the what exactly is the inbound. That means any connection to port 22 is possible, but there is an outbound rule too. That means it can communicate with any other guy in the world in outside. So let us try to give a ping to a google.com and see whether it is able to communicate, and you can see it is able to communicate perfectly to the outside world with me. So just wanted to give a minimal introduction to a SSH. And even if you are going to use Windows 10, I would advise to use Putty because it is a very useful tool. And just like, of course, you need to know some Linux commands to start playing with it. So let me stop the pinging. So we want to know where exactly we are in the current. So we are in the home EC2 user directory inside the EC2 instance. So any Linux command you can use to see the details of what is happening behind the scenes. Easy, isn't it? So for in the next video, so this is all for this. In the next video, we will use the SSH that is available in Windows 10. That is in the next one. So bye for now.